Geoff, thank you very much for inviting me to your home.
Pleasure.
Wow, yesterday I had the pleasure to attend your class, your yoga class. You are here a yoga teacher in Ubud on Bali, and well, to be in your class had been really great, and well, I have felt it very energetic. You do a yoga which is very energetic and full of strength and energy. And well, gave me an impression. And I'd like to know more about your manner of doing yoga. What is it? What kind of yoga do you do?
That's a very frequently asked question. As a yoga teacher, people ask you, what type of yoga do you teach?
Oh,
And the answer, quite frankly, is yoga. Because what is yoga? It's about connection. And the true connection with your own divinity, with your own true nature. And our daily lifestyles, particularly our westernized lifestyles, are all about the external. It's been so consumeristic based that it's been challenging for people to really connect with what they already have. And so that's the biggest thing about yoga, and it's been around for thousands of years. So obviously people for thousands of years have had the same issues. And so all I do is teach those fundamental principles of connection with your greater self, your divinity, with your own true nature, who you really are, and deliver it in a way that, depending on the class structure, really adds to that story. And so the class you came to yesterday, for example, was a stronger vinyasa class. I teach more traditional hatha classes. I teach yin style classes, restorative style classes, pranayama style classes. So when people ask me, what type of yoga do I teach? I teach connection. And that's basically the fundamental of it. The rest of it's all technique and delivery.
yeah. Do you know, my little experience of yoga is that there are women teaching yoga and there are men teaching yoga, and there's a difference. And the difference I experienced is that of maybe a male energy. So my impression had been you're strong, you are going forward, you are giving through your art of yoga self-esteem by overcoming the weakness of the body. That creates self-esteem and being with that in life, in work. Well, I liked it. It is not something I experienced today in the morning in the yoga barn with a woman who had been very soft, but full of feeling and emotion. I cried, So there came up a process, a consciousness process, through that being in yoga asanas. And there's a difference between the female and the male manner, maybe. So,
I've experienced male and female teachers that deliver both.
Both,
Yes.
of course. She wasn't not. It was also hard to do all these exercises.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, you're looking and you are somehow stronger.
I think our own experiences definitely have a part in the way we express ourselves as people, let alone as teachers. And this is all yoga teachers are doing. They're expressing as I've already saying, I'm kind of paraphrasing the same thing in a different way, that it really is just an expression of the practice, an expression of the philosophy. And if you look at the philosophy from the greater perspective, when we talk about the chakras, and the chakras are basically points along the major lines of energy that bisect and interconnect with each other. And they represent different elements. So the first being the earth element. A lot of what I teach, and particularly teaching and living in a place like Ubud, where there's a lot of people that move through here. And a lot of people are moving through from very busy lifestyles, coming to places like Bali, places like Ubud, for the escape from the treadmill of their lives. So a lot of what I teach is very grounding, and perhaps that's part of what you're feeling there as well. So a lot of earthiness to it, a lot of groundedness to it, a lot of stability to it. And from that grounded stability, this is where we then come to the water, which is all about emotions and intimacy and about our feelings. So from that sense of the earth, it's all about the physical, I am. The sense of the water, about our emotions, our intimacy, I feel. And then of course, the fire. And this is our actions, so I do. But interspaced with it all, that sense of nurture, of self-care. And again, when we come back to the philosophy of yoga, the first principle of the Yoga Sutras is ahimsa, which is all about self-nurture and self-care. So yeah, there's definitely an element to the way I teach that is really getting people focused and getting people present in that moment, trying to move away from the story that might come up and getting them into their body in that moment at that time. And this is the practice. And when we talk about that in those first three elements, earth, water and fire, this is part of what we call the meat layer, the Annamaya Kosha. And we have these different energetic layers within the body that create who we are. And so the Hatha practice or the Vinyas practice or the physical asana practice that we deliver as yoga teachers deals primarily with those first three of earth, water and fire. And that is that physical, the emotional and the action you're doing.
Yeah.
And of course then it gets interspersed then with breath and the ability to maintain and create space. And these are the next two of our chakras, which is air and ether. And those two then represent what we call the pranamaya kosha, the energy layer. Once we then do that, we then understand that in order to create these awarenesses, we're always using this one right here. And this is the element beyond elements themselves. We start to come towards the element of light itself, of awareness, of perception. And from that perspective, we're absorbing knowledge as we do the practice. And then by observing ourselves as we practice, we turn that into wisdom. And this becomes the two layers of Manamaya Kosha and Jnanamaya Kosha. And then those, once they are all aligned, and when I say aligned, it's not necessarily in one straight line, but intermingled and working together. This is when we achieve those moments in the practice that we go, this feels great. And most people aren't always understanding why it feels great, but this is the philosophy behind why it feels great.
Mm-hmm.
So as a teacher, this is what I'm teaching.
Yeah.
Always with that awareness, having that balance. Okay, this class today, we need a little bit more earthiness. This class today, we need a little bit more of the flowing water. This class today, we need a little bit more fire. But here in Bali, we don't always need so much fire because it's already warm.
Yeah.
It's just enough to make sure that we're moving the energy without burning ourselves out.
Mm. When you're talking that way about the chakras and the translation into earth, fire and air.
Earth, water, fire, air, ether.
Ah, okay. So that's a translation of the Indian philosophy. And wait a minute.
Yep.
And my impression is that the Indians had gone out of a society where they are in relationship and family relationships inwardly. Our society today, the mass society, is confronted with anonymity, with no relationships, no connections. So people are in their body, in their mind, but they do not find connections. They do not speak to each other. So I liked it very much that you gave a satsang, a lecture about your book. You're writing a book,
Yes.
and about the history and the current state of yoga, of the yoga movement. Well, and there were questions and answers, some conversation, yeah, a group around you. Seldom that I see this. You know, people come to a class and then they leave. Seldom there is a chance to connect, to speak, to become acquainted. So, what do you think about this? Yoga and becoming to be in vacation here and build a network of friends and
Well, what I would like to do momentarily is acknowledge where I do teach at the moment. That's Radiantly Alive in
Yeah.
Ubud. And they've got the foresight there to comprehend that there are many different ways in delivering yoga. And the ability to deliver those satsangs directly comes through their foresight in order to be able to, for me to be able to do that and others to be able to do that in that environment. So yeah, I do want to acknowledge that separately. Thank you to them. And
yes.
the idea of the satsang is timeless. It's been timeless.
Times.
Many of the gurus and many of the gurus that are in many of the Indian villages or areas, they quite often have the wise men have this talk. And even hundreds of years ago, the Maharajas would often invite the wise men in, and the satsang would be a part of this. And it was also for the rich people as well. It was almost a status symbol to have the guru to come in and give the satsang. So that there is that part of it. But there is also the ones that have been chosen since very young that will give satsang, and that is part of what their culture is about. So it's a beautiful part of the culture, definitely. I think that in some ways we have had this in Western culture for many years, but with the advent of things like radio and television, it started to peter off. But even radio initially, it used to be about sitting around the radio and listening to the stories and the radio players which were delivering a message. Here in Bali, they still have the puppet shows. They still have the Balinese ballet, which are telling the story, and a lot of the cultural ideology is delivered through these still.
Yeah.
And so this is really what the satsang is about. It's that awareness of delivering a message in a way that people are able to receive. And the idea of questioning is a beautiful part of it, because questioning is all about clarity. And when we're questioning things, we're individuals. When we're being lectured to, it starts to change us into sheeple. So there's a big part of the practice is encouraging people to be questioning, encouraging that sense of curiosity. And that's where it moves beyond religion in many ways, because it's not trying to tell us that you must do this, you must do that. Certainly there are ways that we can move the body that are more beneficial than other ways. Certainly there are ways and techniques that we can utilize that have been passed down for sometimes thousands of years that have benefits over doing it other ways. But all of it's literally about allowing you to be an individual. certainly encouraging you to be an individual as part of a productive culture.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the practice,
Yeah.
which is certainly challenging if you're an autocrat or a big corporation that basically wants you to follow this and go down this pathway. And that's why yoga literally was handed down from teacher to student for thousands of years, because having everyone thinking freely for themselves and understanding I am enough can be very challenging for many institutions.
Yeah. Being enough for oneself, yes. However, we are social beings, and well, I remember you asked me not to abuse the video taking, with video taking, the intimacy of the woman, being there in the child position. Yeah, you asked me especially. Okay. Wait a
Yeah,
minute. The theme behind that is the confrontation of sex. Sex, shame, anger, all these themes, these psychological themes, which arise in human beings in a group. And, well, you are confronted with this. Do you offer, for example, something like tantric yoga? As far as I understand, this is yoga with a partner together.
there's many different things you just touched upon. I will just clarify one thing. I didn't believe that you were abusing. So when you use that word, perhaps the translation into English, it's a very harsh term.
Yeah.
And I'd rather look at it as respecting whether it's male or female when someone's lying on their back with their feet up near their ears. That it's maybe not the sort of posture that people like themselves photographed in.
Yeah.
So that was the first part. You then mentioned about that sense of the sexuality, and that's an ongoing issue anywhere in the world. Certainly in the yoga practice, there has been, and I use the term loosely when I use the word yoga and the hot style yoga that was recently.
Hot style?
I won't mention the name, it's not even worth mentioning the name. But it was a hot style yoga documentary about the individual who ran it recently. And it highlighted some of the endemic issues that certain yoga gurus were doing for a while there, and basically abusing their power in regards to sexuality. And that has always been an issue, I feel, that occurs in almost any workplace. But more so, I feel in yoga we need to be super, super vigilant with that. For myself, I cannot definitely say that I've been 100% vigilant every single moment that I've been teaching, because I know there's been people that say, oh, I'm not sure about this or I'm not sure about that in regards to my classes. However, as you probably noticed at the beginning of the classes, I always try to, might not always remember, but I always try to say things like, as a yoga teacher, I adjust. And my little go-to around that to try and take the seriousness out of it is that I will, should I come towards you to offer an adjustment, feel free to wave me away or scream at me at the top of your voice. Either way I will understand. And because there are people that will come to a yoga class that we don't know their stories.
Yeah.
And a simple adjustment that might be beneficial for 99,000 people, that one person, that might spark some sense of trauma in them.
Yeah.
And that's something as a teacher, it's something that I think I had to learn, definitely. It's something that particularly when I was coming through. I've been practicing now for over 30 years. I've been teaching, I think, for 13. I'll have to check the calendar.
Oh,
It certainly was something that wasn't as clearly expressed now, and I don't even feel a lot of yoga teacher programs clearly express the awareness around this. But then you went to the tantric aspect, and just to be totally 100% clear, tantra is not about sex.
wonderful, thanks for that.
Yeah. Tantra addresses sex just the same way Hatha Yoga addresses sex.
Does it?
And it's about the understanding that the divine masculine and the divine feminine combined create life. Tantra is about life. Tantra is about understanding that there are so many different aspects and elements of the way that we connect with life that at any one moment we will focus on certain aspects of it. Just like the way now you're focusing upon me, you're using your eyes, you're focusing with a different part of your mind, or maybe you're starting to get distracted by those drops of rain.
Yes, that's a point. I think we have to stop it here because the monsoon is coming.
Yeah, it's certainly true.
One last word.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
are around, you are a global yoga teacher. Maybe you come next time to Germany and England and Spain.
Keep your
What-
eyes open for 2020 summer. I'll be in Europe, definitely Italy, France, Switzerland. I'm trying to look for Germany, I'm trying to get to Austria as well. But yes, we better
Thank
move
you.
before this comes down.
We see us. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.